of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves rally late and pull away from the Nets in Brooklyn, 125-109. That's your final tonight. They moved to 4-3 on the year. What's happening? Back in the lab. Back at it, another T-Wolves postcast episode. If you're new here, thanks for joining One Stop Shop, all your Timberwolves instant reaction deep dive after every game. He's Jack Borman, a Wolves expert, NBA expert. Give him a follow on X at JRBorman13. I'm Luke Inman on X at Luke_Spinman. You got to follow Ben Beacon as well, host of the Locked On Timberwolves show each and every day. Find all the video on the Locked On Wolves YouTube channel, all the audio wherever you find your podcast. A lot to get into, Jack. Biggest turning point from tonight, game MVP plus. Let's assess the young kids, Rob Dillingham, Jalen Clark specifically. But first, just off the top, as we always do, Wolves look sloppy in this one early. A lot of fouls, a lot of turnovers. That's usually a recipe for disaster. They find a way to kind of clean and tighten things back up, though, in the second quarter. And they just kind of felt like gradually building before. Eventually, they ran away with it late. 60-second big picture knee-jerk reaction just to kind of kick things off. What's the one or two things that kind of stuck out the most? And, game 7 of the season, game 4 with no Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Nets coach Jordi Fernandez said after the game last night, they lost to the Sixers, that he was just having difficulties getting the guys to play hard, and they came out and really looked like the team that wanted it more early. I mean, Minnesota had 8 turnovers and 9 fouls in that first quarter, but they came right back with 10 assists and 1 turnover in that second quarter, moved the ball really well, and only had 4 fouls, which was important too. But they also made up for some of that sloppy play by really playing well inside in this game. The Timberwolves won 56-32 in the paint. They won 36-20 at the rim. The Wolves shot 18 of 22 at the rim, 81%, well above the league average there in the high 60s. And Brooklyn was down at 50%, only made 10 shots at the rim. And then offensive rebounding, the Wolves had 14 offensive rebounds for 19 second chance points, which is a great number. And 11 of those 14 offensive rebounds came on missed 3-point shots. The Wolves rebounded more than half of their 3-point misses, which was great. And then 2-point shooting, right, in this game. It just felt like every time the Wolves got in on twos, which is a really good mark to be at when you consider that the league average is 55%. So great there. And then again, just overall shot profile, I thought was fantastic. They took 76% of their shots were either at the rim or from behind the arc. And anything above 70 is a good mark on the Wolves on those shots. They shot 40% from 3, and they shot 81% at the rim, like I said. And then, but again, when they did take shots in the mid-range, I thought they were really good looks for the most part. And you had guys taking them that you want range shots, which is anything above 55% is great there. So overall, just a really efficient night for the Wolves when they weren't turning it over on one end and fouling.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
So they're up 4 at halftime, and then in typical good Wolves fashion, they come out in the third quarter, and they start hot, 13-5 run in the first 3 minutes of the third quarter, forces Brooklyn to call a timeout. It took until about midway through the fourth quarter to really build that sizable lead and put in the bench guys. When was that moment, that sequence that really helped the Wolves? When was it? Why?
Yeah, I think for me it was an 11-2 run at the start of the third quarter that ballooned their lead from 3 up to 12. I think it just kind of bought them enough of a cushion to be able to play through some of the mistakes that they were having, which was important for them. I think Jaden McDaniels picking up his third and fourth fouls pretty quickly in that third quarter changed things a little bit as well. But the Wolves made some defensive adjustments out of the halftime locker room that I thought were important. It was the second straight game they had just better defense out of the break. And tonight, that was because Rudy Gobert, they had him higher up towards the level of that ball screen instead of being deeper down in that drop, which was allowing Cam Thomas to have some runway into the mid-range, be able to elevate over guys for shots. And I thought that, with Rudy being up higher in ball screen actions right away in that third quarter, they had 3 quick stops. And when Rudy's more involved on defense, those guys are trying to find him offensively. And he had 2 big dunks. And I think, those two things kind of just feed each other, right? When he's really engaged on On the offensive end of the floor, tends to be the same way on the other end. And then when things started to slip a little bit, I thought Julius Randle did a great job of just kind of picking up the reins and taking control of everything at the end of the third quarter to give Minnesota some momentum with 2 quick scores and 2 steals. And then they just carried that energy into the fourth. Like I said, they played zone in the fourth quarter, which I thought was pretty interesting with the 3 bigs out there. Then they had Jaden McDaniels and Dante DiVincenzo at the top of a 2-3 zone to try to limit Cam Thomas again, who is the only real offensive option for Brooklyn tonight without Michael Porter Jr. And kind of in that stretch, there was a 25-10 Wolves run that got the lead out to 19. And during that stretch, the Nets were 1 of 10 on threes and 2 of 6 on twos. So they shot just 3 of 16 overall, thanks to some really good defense. And the Wolves did a great job of closing out those stops with rebounds, which is important against a team with 2 really good offensive rebounders in Nick Claxton and Day'Ron Sharpe.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
How about tonight's game MVP, Jack? 3 players with over 20 points. You got DDV, Nas, and Julius. Julius with the triple dub. Got to pick one, though, not to mention, too, Rudy Gobert, plus 27 in the plus minus. Got to pick one, though. Who was it and why tonight?
Yeah, for me, it's Dante DiVincenzo tonight. I had this written down in the first half that it would have been Jaden McDaniels, but what Dante did tonight, I thought was just remarkable. I think the way that he's really kind of played at the level that he did when he was in New York during that, the second half of the season a couple years ago when Julius Randle was hurt with that shoulder injury, felt like DiVincenzo was having these big nights, night after night after night, and huge moments, and in the playoffs as well, playing alongside Jalen Brunson. And so I think to get that version of Dante DiVincenzo alongside the version of Julius Randle that we're seeing right now has to feel pretty good for Wolves fans just looking back on that trade. But yeah, Dante tonight, 25 points, made 6 of his 13 threes. It's the second straight game that Dante has taken at least 10 threes and made at least 5 of them. So he's 11 of 25, 40% in his last 2 games. That's excellent 3-point shooting on super high volume, which is even more important without Anthony Edwards, who can get up 8, 9, 10 threes a game. And so I think for Dante, just being so full of confidence and not thinking or hesitating with his shot, just getting him up. And even if he's missing his first 2, 3, or 4 shots early, he just continues to shoot through it. And I think that's been really good for him. And he's proven that he can score the ball at a really high clip. And then when teams run him off the 3-point line, I think he made good decisions tonight. And he's been in better rhythm doing that. He had 5 assists tonight. And then what was also stood out to me was that Dante DiVincenzo is playing with a broken nose. And we saw how jacked up his nose looked and how just uncomfortable and painful that injury looked. And he had 9 rebounds tonight, one of 3 Wolves with at least 9 rebounds, which is really important for a Timberwolves team that I think when they don't have the same kind of defensive intensity, I think sometimes that shows up on the glass. But for Dante to provide that energy for the Timberwolves alongside Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle, who have done a tremendous job kind of leading the Wolves without Anthony Edwards, just as on an individual level. It was really cool to see, and I think is only going to serve the Timberwolves really well now as hopefully they may get Anthony Edwards back here later this week.
Good stuff per usual. Plenty more deep dive from this one. Some notes on Rob Dillingham, Jalen Clark, plus our Anthony Edwards update. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monarch Money. You ever go check your bank account and go, where did my money go? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment. So easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Not just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Track all your accounts, investments, spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and instead you start building some wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your entire first year. This episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, without a doubt, most fun I have playing daily fantasy because you can win up to 25 times your money this NBA season. And why I love it, It's so easy to play. All you got to do, you select 2 or more players on any given night, pick more or less on their projected stats. Plus, PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay as well. Quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LockedOnNBA at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. You're getting a 100% bonus match up to $100. Last but not least, we are brought to you today by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you gotta, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. They're changing the game by turning your rent into rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you're in flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels, airlines, future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, you name it, they got it. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood. Go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the link so they know we sent you. All right, before we get into what we'll be talking about, quick hitters. I'm curious what you've seen and, have seen as a whole, but what also you saw tonight specifically from some of the rotation guys, right? The young guys. Rob Dillingham, we're obviously all heavily emotionally invested into. Jalen Clark, he keeps on doing, all the things that makes Jalen Clark good. And then also some notable rotations out there as well. I want your thoughts on that. Give me your rapid fire, quick 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, for sure. I think this was another positive building block game for Rob Dillingham. I know, looking at the stat line, 5 points on 5 shots, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 turnovers doesn't really stand out. But I thought he should have had 3 or 4 assists. I thought he made some really good passes, and I think he again just continued to be a pass defensively. I think when he's the guy that's creating some loose balls, poking the ball away from opposing guards. I think his off-ball awareness has been significantly better than it was earlier on in the season, which is really important. And I think that off-ball discipline is going to be really important for him, especially considering the fact that he's slighter of build and not as tall as a lot of the guards that you see in today's NBA. So that on-ball defense is going to be just an uphill battle for him from the get-go. So I think seeing that is really important. And I think he just looks like he's moving with more confidence out there. And then with Jalen Clark, I thought that he played really well on Cam Thomas. I held him to 2 points on 1 of 4 shooting, and they were matched up together for a good amount of this game when Jalen was on the court. And I think being able to have an individual defender, he's I think for my money, I think he's the best individual defender, one-on-one on-ball defender on this team, even better than Jaden McDaniels. And I think just being able to deploy him in very controlled situations of like, hey, go make Cam Thomas's life really difficult for 4 minutes. And if you need a breather, we'll bring Jaden back in, or we'll bring TJ in, or somebody that can do a good job filling in. And then on the lineup front too, I really liked the way that Chris Finch got to both of those guys. I think he played a lineup that closed the second quarter of Rob Dillingham. Yeah, was it to close the second quarter? Yeah, it was to close the second quarter. That was Rob Dillingham, Jalen Clark, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, and Rudy Gobert for about the final 5 minutes of that second quarter. And when you get a group that can kind of balance each other out as well as that group did, I thought that it was just really fun to see. Being able to insulate Rob Dillingham and Julius Randle with 3 elite level defenders and Jalen Clark, Jaden McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert, I just think is just smart lineup construction. And I think kind of allows Rob and Julius to be the focal points of the offense. But then also, Jalen Clark can be a guy that can corner crash and cut for buckets inside. Jaden McDaniels has shown obviously that he can be a really solid secondary or tertiary scoring option, especially when the defense is committing more of their attention to guys like Julius Randle and Rob Dillingham. And then too, with Rob, obviously in the pick and roll, Rudy Gobert can be a factor. And I think you saw some more synergy there from those two tonight. Obviously the 1 assist that Rob had was that alley-oop dunk to Gobert up top. So I think that was fun. And speaking of Rudy Gobert, again, I thought his impact in this game was tremendous. Rudy Gobert played about 34 minutes in this game. The Wolves were plus 27 in those minutes. They had an offensive rating of 152. I did not have time to check, but I would imagine that is the best single game offensive rating that they've had with Rudy Gobert on the court this season. It helps obviously going against the worst defense in the NBA by quite a margin in the Brooklyn Nets. But again, nonetheless, still on defensive rating of 107 in those minutes. And then with Rudy Gobert off the court in this game, 28 in the 14 minutes that Rudy Gobert was off the court, and they had a defensive rating of 126 in those minutes. So I think it really kind of showed that they just really struggled to not only rebound the ball when Rudy Gobert was on the court. When Rudy was off the court, the defensive rating, a defensive rebound percentage of about 54%. And league average there for defensive rebound percentage is much closer to about 70%, 69% right now. So obviously well below where you want to be with that Julius and Naz front court. So again, stack.
Talking about tomorrow.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Obviously, the game is always the topic first and foremost. Glad they got the dub against a very bad, struggling Nets team, 0-7 now on the year. But I'm sure a lot of people will be discussing anyways. Anthony Edwards, he evaluated again today. Just give us the latest on that and his new timetable, if any, I guess.
Yeah, the Timberwolves said that he's cleared for full contact basketball activities, so he'll practice with the team, participate in shoot-arounds, I would imagine, and then he'll be listed as out moving forward, most likely with return to play conditioning. So based on that, it could be 2 more games he sits out. So maybe we get him back, Sunday when the Timberwolves play. But if not, it could be something early next week for Anthony Edwards, where maybe it's maybe play him Monday against at Utah, and then you've got 3 days after that off in between the Timberwolves home game next Friday, the 14th. So I would imagine that for sure by that Friday the 14th that Ant will be back. But I think you've got to give a ton of love to Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle for what they've done in Ant's absence. I think, obviously the team hasn't performed necessarily how you would like them to all the time when Ant's been out, but I think those two on an individual level have been really good. And I think for Jaden specifically, it's really hard to scale up your game from being a secondary or tertiary guy whenever you're on the court to being one of the primary creators, but do so by playing within yourself and playing to your strengths, but also playing within the flow of the offense. And I think Jaden has done so wonderfully, and he's done so really efficiently too, which is super important. Jaden McDaniels was entering tonight was 10 of 23 from 3, and at the rim was 21 of 29, 72%. I mean, those marks are really strong. And then some of the mid-range stuff, he's shooting 10 of 30% in the mid-range from 2, but obviously improved on all of those marks tonight with his 22-point effort on 9 of 11 shooting, was 2 of 3 from 3, and it just felt like he was getting to wherever he wanted to go inside the arc, which was fantastic. And then Julius Randle, right, just continues to be a guy that you can go to as kind of your bell cow first option and just kind of run everything through him. I think he started 1 of 5 from the floor, but then shot 5 of 7 for the rest of the game, and again was the primary creator offensively for the Wolves. Had 10 assists and added 11 rebounds to go with that. And I think a lot of his scoring came at important moments that kind of stemmed the tide a little bit and flipped the momentum. And what was a really, really nice put together game from Julius, even though it didn't start out great. It ended in his 15th career triple-double and first as a Timberwolf. So for Jaden and Julius to continue to do what they've done without Ant has been really fun to watch. And hopefully as Ant continues to improve with that right hamstring strain and gets back in the mix, that hopefully those two guys plus Dante, as we talked about, finding his rhythm, he'll continue to be able to play at the level that they have been.
Well said there. Great stuff per usual. T-Wolves rally late. They pull away from the Nets in Brooklyn, 125-109. That's your final. 4-3 now on the year. Much love to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. And go follow Jack at Borman 13. We'll catch you Wednesday in New York versus the Knicks, 6:30 p.m. tip. Until then, signing out.